Now Dante and Virgil are ready to enter into the first proper circle of hell, the circle of limbo. Dante's first experience of it, remember, he's just recovered from a fainting spell. He's been dazed by the horror that he's seen at the end of Canto 3, and now he's just coming back into consciousness and needs to try to reorient himself, but he's finding that very difficult. A different aspect of the mystery is about to present itself to him. Virgil says, "Now let us descend into the blind world down there," began the poet, gone pale. "I will be first and you come after." And I, noting his pallor, said, "How shall I come if you're afraid, you who give me comfort when I falter?" And he to me, "The anguish of the souls below us paints my face with pity you mistake for fear. Let us go, for the long road calls us." Extraordinarily poignant lines expressing an intimate moment of recognition between Dante and Virgil. Dante, who is himself still terrified, notices the change in complexion. Virgil goes pale. And Dante misinterprets that, thinking that Virgil himself is frightened. But Virgil says, no. There's something that we're about to see here that touches me so deeply. It drains the very blood from my complexion, constricts my heart in such a way that I almost can't express it. We're going to find out that these souls that they will now encounter are Virgil's own company. They are the so-called virtuous pagans. And in meeting them, we encounter one of the deepest and most puzzling mysteries, not just of the Inferno, but of the entire poem. Virgil's character is, as we've seen from the first canto onward, a problem. Virgil is absolutely necessary to Dante. He cannot make this journey, he cannot even start the journey without him. But Virgil announces in his very first proclamation to Dante that Virgil will not be able to accompany him to the end of that journey because he's not allowed to go past the boundaries of purgatory. Intimately necessary, but ultimately insufficient. That's Virgil's identity in relation to Dante. And it breaks our heart, just as it breaks Virgil's heart here, because it's a tragic situation. The reason for it is, as Virgil has already explained, he was born before the birth of Christ. He lived in a time that did not know Christ. And as a result of that, he does not have the same possibilities. He doesn't have the same hope that Dante has. He cannot. This is a very hard saying. It's often identified by those who are critical of biblical religion in general, that Virgil is a good example of those who, for some inexplicable reason, haven't been chosen. He's not one of the chosen ones. He goes on to tell Dante that soon after he'd arrived in hell, Christ came and liberated Adam and Isaac and Jacob and all the other people of Israel because they had been chosen, but he was not. Along with, as we soon find out, some of the greatest figures of Western culture, Homer, the great Greek poets and tragedians, the philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, the virtuous pagans, who were willing to make a choice, were willing to identify a way of life that they believed in and to carry it through to the end, living in the virtue of that world. And yet it wasn't good enough. How could Dante possibly countenance condemning Virgil and all of the other virtuous pagans to a life where, as the poet says, there is no pain, no suffering, no punishment, except the eternal absence of hope. Notice how there's an interesting similarity and yet difference to the indecisives that we saw just a little bit earlier in Canto 3. Death held no hope for them, but that was because they had refused the freedom and responsibility to choose an identity for themselves. These pagans chose their identity, and they chose a good one. But as we said, not quite good enough, and the reason was not because of some fault, weakness, or character flaw on their part, but rather they were born in the wrong time and the wrong place. And I think it's there that the abyss and the terror of this mystery really opens up. One of the consequences of recognizing that this is poetry and therefore metaphor is that we come to realize, when we view it in that perspective, there's only one real person in the entire Divine Comedy. That's Dante. Everybody else is a soul. And what's a soul? Well, sometimes he refers to it as a shadow, a shade in the old Greco-Roman sense, the world of Hades, where the shadows or shades live. We speak about it in the context of this course more in terms of it being an identity, a meaning, an answer to the question, who is Virgil? Who is Dante? It's that identity which is condemned eternally to a life without hope. Not the person Virgil. He would be a fool to condemn the historical Virgil to hell. But Dante's no fool, and that's not what he's doing. What he's saying is that for someone like Virgil, like Homer, like Aristotle, like Plato, that is, someone who lived within the worldview of the classical Greco-Roman tradition, that worldview, that way of seeing reality, closes off any possibility of hope. It's just as Virgil portrays in his Aeneid. Some people, Aeneas, are chosen by fate and by destiny to be heroes. And with piety and with courage and with perseverance, he can succeed. Others, those people who die bravely, valiantly, with true integrity in the war that Aeneas is forced to wage in order to gain the possibility of founding the city of Rome, all the others who were in the wrong place in the wrong time could not be heroes. It was not their fate. Virgil is a representative of the worldview that sees the human situation in a light that no matter how virtuous, no matter how responsible a person is in choosing their identity, that identity is subject to an iron condition of fate, which is indifferent to their existence as an individual. Either you're chosen or you're not. And that choosing has nothing to do with a personal God. It's ironclad necessity that chooses the fate of a Greek or a Roman hero. It's that worldview which makes hope impossible. Virgil is inseparable in his identity from that worldview, and because he's inseparable from the worldview, Virgil the character, Virgil the soul, cannot enter into paradise.